Hello and welcome to Odds Premier League Match Day 21 midweek games. Last match day in this Christmas period. Very busy in the UK, Tom, and we have Arsenal 6 points ahead of Man City, again dropping points. This is already a big distance.
Big distance, but still a long way to go. Arsenal at some point will drop points. We know City are at their best in the final 10, but the last week was troubling for Man City. If it were me and I was them, I would maybe spend 700 million on players this January.
Well, they have the money. Why not? The problem is if you don't have the money and if you spend it, if you have the money, yeah, go to the market, eat lobster every day. You can afford it. So, well, we have Arsenal, Liverpool, for instance, this match day. So we have great games ahead, a lot to talk about. RUBEN AMORIM also seen, I think he has trouble knowing his position at Man United. We have to check LinkedIn and see what RUBEN AMORIM position is, but we will find out in a bit. So guys, stay with us. Ask any question to Tom Rennie. Let me know, of course, your tips. And now let's go on with the show. First game on Tuesday. I'm so sorry, Tom. We have to talk a little bit about your West Ham, Nottingham Forest. It looks like West Ham are hopeless at this moment in time, losing to Wolves, looking really bad already in the first half. The game was over. Is 1 point in the last 5 games, winless in 9. Really bad numbers. And Forest, by the way, also not looking great. It's 4 consecutive defeats after losing to Villa. It looks like the new manager bounce is over, and luckily for them, the others are not getting points, but they are only 4 points away from West Ham. So Tom, even if you win, there is still hope, I think.
No, I don't think there is any hope for West Ham. This team, this club, this manager, they stink of relegation in an almost acrid way. And the way they lost against Wolverhampton Wanderers was, like, I've been quite pessimistic about West Ham for quite some time. I think I said to you after the Fulham game a few weeks ago that was really the line for me. They had to win that game and lost it by a goal to nil. They've had 4 must-wins in a row and got 1 point from them. But even I was gobsmacked by the performance against Wolverhampton Wanderers at the weekend. The total lack of preparedness for the game was shocking. The fact they didn't have a shot on target in the game was incredible. The fact that 3-0 down at halftime, Nuno seemed to settle for that and go to a 5-4-1 and hold out for the scoreline, maybe to keep the goal difference down. I don't know what he was doing. Like, it was truly shocking. They haven't kept a clean sheet under Nuno. The only clean sheet they kept this season was against Nuno when he was Forest manager and Graham Potter was the West Ham boss. And they've got problems all over the field. Defensively, 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐷𝐻𝐿 may be the worst footballer to have ever played association football, like a truly abysmal footballer. And I cannot understand how he's still got 5.5 years left on his contract to West Ham. You can pinpoint West Ham's decline from the moment he signed. And he just simply can't play in this game. He's so bad, he can't play. You're better off play with 10 or just put someone else back there. He's so abysmal. The backup fullbacks, because the main fullbacks are AFCON, are struggling. Walker, Peters and Siles. Midfield, a few weeks ago in the one against Newcastle, they found Freddie Potts as a central midfielder with 2 people outside of him. Nuno's not done that since. Don't know why. He's doing different things now. Magassa was awful in the game against Wolverhampton Wanderers and was lucky to stay on until half-time. Callum Wilson can't score a goal. Somerville does nothing, and Bowen can't do it on his own. I thought he was pretty poor in the game against Wolves as well. So 41 goals conceded, their worst in the season after 20 games since 1965. 9 winless runs is their worst record since relegation in 10-11. I mean, I could go on. They're an absolutely appalling team with an appalling manager who seemingly doesn't want to be there. And my only surprise going into Tuesday is that Nuno hasn't resigned. Because if you don't want to be there to that degree and you don't need the money, why would you stay? I've seen nothing from him. He hasn't got much to work with, but he's also making nothing with what he's got to work with. They signed a striker a couple of days ago. They rushed the transfer, and then he didn't make it onto the field against Wolves. Whether they'll bring in Castellanos at all now, I don't know. There was talk they would. They're not buying a defender for reasons I cannot fathom. Like, get a centre-half. Get a centre-half in. I just cannot believe they haven't got a centre-half in. I could go on, but awful at home, awful away, awful everywhere, not made any significant signings, and absolutely no chance here. In terms of Forest, in another season where West Ham and Burnley and Wolves weren't so abysmal, they could be in some trouble. But I think, the three at the bottom are so historically bad. If West Ham were to win this, they would close the gap to 1. But even then, I wouldn't be that concerned about Nottingham Forest. I think that they've got goalkeeping issues, and I think that John Victor's injury / embarrassment at the weekend was quite bad. Matt Sells coming back in, he's out of form, but I think that'll be better for them. Mueller and Milenkovic still look a good pairing. I think Anderson and Dominguez cover a lot of ground in midfield. They'll outwork this West Ham midfield without even really trying. And the only issue for Forest really is the lack of goals. They had one from Gibbs-White against Villa. 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐳𝐽 is not doing it in the Premier League. He's working hard, but not delivering enough. And I would say 𝗵𝗀𝗀, who came in for Hudson-Odoi, wasn't particularly good on the wing against Villa. But it doesn't really matter, frankly. You could put up 11 ham sandwiches against West Ham, and I think you'd win this game. And the Forest win at 2.4 was quite significant favourites, despite losing 4 in a row, tells you that. So take the Forest win, because West Ham are just so utterly pitiful. I do think there will be goals in this game, mainly because Forest will score first. West Ham at home will have to do something. I can see a consolation goal for West Ham, maybe. And Forest win and both teams to score 4.33 is pretty good. They've both got pretty poor defensive records. And as I've mentioned, West Ham concedes so many goals, but they do have Jarrod Bowen, so maybe they'll score one. So Forest win, both teams to score 4.33. It's pretty generous.
Well, someone is saying also going for a draw, since Forest are not looking good either. So when you have 2 trouble teams, usually we see a draw. David, going for West Ham and under 3.5. You are too audacious. David, brave enough to back West Ham at this point. Will never bet in a West Ham win. Good, well done. Benji Price, well, a scary game. This one, West Ham, Nottingham Forest on Wednesday. Bournemouth, Tottenham, another game with 2 teams that are unable to win. Another game that could scream draw. Bournemouth lost to Arsenal, drew with Chelsea, conceding so many goals, winless in 11. And Spurs, you mentioned also, Tom, that the game against Sunderland screamed draw. It was a draw. So it's 1 win in the last 5 Premier League games. This one screams draw.
Ooh, maybe. I wouldn't discount it, but I think it screams Tottenham win. Because at home, Spurs have been abysmal, and you should always back Spurs to draw or lose at home. But away from home, they've won half their games with 3 draws on top. Only Arsenal, thanks to this weekend just gone, have got a better away record than Tottenham Hotspur. So the dissatisfaction with Thomas Frank is at the start of play in the home form. Away from home, they are a perfectly set up team. I think that Romero and Van de Ven, very strong pairing. I think that 𝗀𝗏𝗏 has brought something dynamic to midfield. Mateus tells me quite good on corners recently. So they're scoring from set piece Spurs. A couple of the fans are calling them, which I think is quite nice. Kudus has got injured, but I think that's no great loss because 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐻 is fit. I don't know. I can see why they're struggling at home, because they're lacking somebody who can slow the ball down and pick the right pass. But away from home, you don't really need that. And if Bournemouth try and force the issue, which they always do, gaps in behind for this Spurs team, I think it could really favour them in this game. So every chance of the Spurs win. In terms of Bournemouth, this run is now jaw-dropping. And again, much like Forest, much like Leeds, much like 1 or 2 others, if West Ham and Burnley weren't so historically abysmal, they could be in trouble because they cannot win. Losing and drawing has become a habit. Finding way to lose has become a habit. And you saw that against Arsenal a couple of days ago. You saw it in the game against Brentford. Elements of the game against Burnley as well. They just find ways not to win football matches. I think losing Tyler Adams has been significant. I think he makes Scott look better and the team look better. And Tavernier dropping deeper means they lose that third really busy body in midfield. The back line has struggled. I don't think Senesi and Hill is a particularly high-quality centre-half pairing, and they've struggled in recent weeks. Fullbacks have struggled. And Semenyo, he remains at the club, and he's doing a few bits, but we're expecting him to go any day. We thought it was done a few days ago. Is it going to be done before the Tottenham game? Maybe he'll go before the FA Cup. That's obviously going to be a drag on you. So It's a really interesting one, this. But even if they score 2 goals this season, Bournemouth have failed to win in 8 of those matches. That's an insane number. So even a 2-goal lead is not getting Bournemouth a win. And I just think with Tottenham's away form, and I think in recent away games like Crystal Palace, for example, or even Brentford, they have shown that away from home, they are really tough to break down. So I think Spurs will look good defensively here. I think Spurs will then counter, and Spurs will then win. And at these odds, it's well worth a punt on a Tottenham victory, considering, again, they are the second best away team in the country against a team who have not won for months. So Spurs win at 3.45. It's going to be very narrow, this. I really don't think anyone else is going to do this because these odds are insane to me. But Tottenham and under 2.5 goals is 7.5. I don't know whether I'm just on a different planet here, but Spurs' recent games, a 1-0 win, a 0-0, and a 1-1. And again, they're very good away from home. Bournemouth recently drew at home with Burnley, 1-1. This is not going to be a goal fest, I don't think. And so Spurs under 2.5 looks really good. And a group bet of 1-0, 2-0, or 3-0, really I just think 1-0 or 2-0 to Tottenham, is also 7. These are big numbers for a quite likely outcome. So it's a bit daring, but I'm taking this.
Okay, the underdog for this game, Tottenham screams 1-1, Carbonaro, Tottenham win, 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝗿𝗀, James Spurs win. Totally agree with Tom. Tyson also going for Tottenham. So people like these odds for Tottenham, 13th in the standings, but especially poor at home. Away, they've been better. Next one is Brentford. Sunderland, 2 teams, I think, overperforming this season, doing great things. We expected way less from Brentford after seeing Thomas Frank departing, but they are doing great at home, especially. But
sorry, I've just got to jump in. Yeah. Some breaking news in the last few seconds. RUBEN AMORIM has just been sacked at Man United, whilst we've been on air. So I just thought I'd throw it in. As it's live break, we're doing a live show. Let's take advantage of that. RUBEN AMORIM sacked whilst we have been on air. He's left following his outburst this weekend. So there you go. Breaking news on Oddspedia this morning.
Well, he wanted to be sacked, Tom. It was pretty clear after the press conference at Elland Road. And there you go. RUBEN AMORIM sacked. Who will be the next manager, Tom? What do you think?
Nuno Espirito Santo, probably. No, you know what? I think they'll look for an interim for the rest of the season now. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like Michael Carrick come in and see him through the season. Managerial experience from Middlesbrough, obviously a legend at the club. They're not going to want to make a long-term appointment here. AMORIM has been such a failure, like a total abject failure as Manchester United manager. His inability to change things tactically, falling out with everybody, unhappy really since the moment he got there. By all accounts, he's tried to leave on 3 or 4 occasions. So I don't know whether there'll be any long-term succession planning, but I do think that they will look for someone temporary to see him through this season, which is disastrous. I imagine Darren Fletcher will be in charge for a couple of weeks until they work it out. But there you go. No great surprise in terms of what he said on Sunday following the game against Leeds. Truly an awful appointment, an abysmal manager, and he won't be missed.
Indeed, he's been terrible with his Man United. Perhaps this team needs a former player, a former star also to convey the message that this is a great club, or used to be a great club, because we tend to forget it. And the last years have been awful, including, of course, AMORIM. He wanted to be sacked, and there you go. It happened to Enzo Maresca. It happened to Nuno Espirito Santo when he was at Nottingham Forest.
And again, maybe on Tuesday.
Yeah, and again, maybe tomorrow we have another manager sacked. Well, 5 days into 2026 and 2 big managers sacked. Well, let's go back to Brentford Sunderland. We will speak about Man United in a bit. Brentford Sunderland, as I said, 2 teams, Tom, 2 clubs overperforming this season, and both are great in this Christmas period, especially Brentford, 3 wins and 1 draw. I know you like 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐺. You mentioned him against Everton, and he scored a hat-trick. And also Sunderland, 4 consecutive draws for them, also impressive season.
Yeah, I feel like I said to you on the program, 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐺 to score, and he didn't score for 4 weeks. And last show is the first time I hadn't said it for ages, and he scored a hat-trick. So I don't know. Maybe it's me. I'm going to say it again now because I think he will score in this game. At home, they've just been so fantastic, Brentford. They've always been good at home under Thomas Frank and now under Keith Andrews. But I didn't think they'd be able to continue it this season. I really didn't. But their home form has been spectacular. 6 victories, 3 draws and only 1 defeat. The issue has been away. They've been a bit stodgy. And they've turned that around now with a spectacular win away at Everton a couple of days ago, which I did not see coming. Now, I will say, we'll get to Everton later. I think their depleted squad numbers certainly came into that conversation. But look, they're an incredibly disciplined team. They are not a spectacular team. They do nothing clever. And I mean that in a complimentary way, because there are some managers like RUBEN AMORIM that have all these ideas from space that don't work when really just play the left back at left back, mate. Just give that a whirl. And what Brentford do is they play a really solid team. They have 2 formations they can use, be it 4-2-3-1 or sort of 3-5-2, 3-6-1. Both work really well. They have a goal scorer in 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐺, as we've discussed already, who is having a spectacular season. 14 goals in the Premier League for anyone at the halfway stage is truly incredible. He's actually chasing down Erling Haaland right now at the top of the goal-scoring charts. That is how good Thiago has been this season. 𝐵𝗏 has been fantastic as well, again, involved in one of the, or maybe 2 of the Thiago goals against Everton, certainly one that I can recall now. So offensively great. And they've also got something that so many teams don't have, centre-halves. Collins and 𝐼𝐴 just want to defend. They want to block. They want to tackle. They want to scream at people. They want to clear the ball. Really, really important stuff for Brentford. And it's led to this incredible run of form they've been on. And with Sunderland, I think their performances against City and Tottenham were very good in terms of energy and in terms of enthusiasm and in terms of just staying in this game. I think 𝗀𝗏𝗿𝗏 against City, I worked on that game and I thought he was just fantastic against Erling Haaland. He bullied him into the ground, 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏, with the help of 𝗵𝐿𝐴. And I think that they kept Haaland totally quiet for the entire game, which is no easy thing to do. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 stepping into midfield with Xhaka has really worked. I think Enzo Lefebvre, just so tough to get the ball off of him. And the 𝗀𝗏𝗏 goal against Tottenham was spectacular. He's only scored 3 in the Premier League this season, Brian 𝗀𝗏𝗏, but one at Tottenham, one at Chelsea. I don't know what the other one was off the top of my head, but like goals at big grounds in big moments for his team to get them. One was a win and one to get them back in the game. So, look, really tough encounter this. But I think overall for Sunderland this season, the away form has been a bit middling. They've been able to pick up points away from home, but only a couple of wins. And I think when you've got a home team with this sort of form, you have to back it. So go for the Brentford win at an understandably low 1.87 to make some money here, put a group bet together, look at these home victories, plenty of goals scored. 4 against Bournemouth, for example, in a 4-1 victory there. Scored 4 away from home a couple of days ago against Everton. So look for Brentford goals, 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0, comes in at 3.25. And I've not got the odds for this yet, but go for Thiago. You have to really. 2.1. Thank you, David. So 2.1 for any time. Look for him first goal scorer as well. Look for Brentford to get a penalty. If they do, he will score it. When you scored a hat-trick, you've always got to back in the following week, which I will.
Well, most of the people are back in Brentford. Brentford will be in Mallorca, but be careful also. Double chance for Sunderland, for Sports Galactico. Sunderland is relentless. A draw is also possible, and someone is concerned about your Christmas tree. Tom, Christmas is over, so your Christmas tree is...
Where were you last week? What's the 3rd show we've done since we've taken it down? It went down on the 27th, and it won't come up again probably till November 1st, I imagine.
Let's go to the south of London. Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. Great odds to back Aston Villa here, by the way. 2.4. The odds went a little bit down in the last minutes because, of course, we have Crystal Palace struggling with so many games, and also during this Christmas period, only 1 point in the last 5 games, lost to Newcastle. The opposite for Aston Villa. They bounce back, Tom, after the defeat against Arsenal with Forest at the weekend. So fairly so, not to see Aston Villa as favourites, still with good odds, though.
Yeah, Villa have to be favourites. Crystal Palace are in a rut now. I think it's official to say they're in a rut from the game in the Conference League, where they had the Conference League, then the League game, then the League Cup. They have really struggled, and that's 6 games without victory. That's 3 defeats in that time. I think the game against Newcastle on Sunday was really flat from Crystal Palace, as it was against Fulham in the league at home, as it was in the loss at home against Tottenham. they had been a well-oiled machine, Palace, for quite some time, and now it's just starting to fall apart all over the field. They covered brilliantly for the loss of 𝐬𝐻𝐬 with 𝐵 coming in, but now Sarr's gone, so Brennan Johnson has come in, who is a different sort of player from the players that he is replacing, so that's a problem there. Suddenly, from Sarr and 𝐬𝐻𝐬, you've gone to 𝐵 and Johnson, different players. You lost Daniel Munoz, who's such an important player. It's not a deep squad at Crystal Palace. And then Chris Richards gets injured, so the back three then starts getting broken up. Adam Wharton is fit, then he's not. He's fit, then he's not. Jefferson Lerma's struggling for fitness. You know, it's just on and on. Kamada's been out for a little while, and he's out till February. And 𝐻𝐿𝐴, who's been a backup striker, is missing. The squad's not deep enough to cope with this many problems and this many games. And it's now 7 matches without a win, their longest run since 23. Look, they'll be fine, Crystal Palace. They'll probably finish 12th like they used to in the old days. But I think it's worth noting that they come into this in a really bad position. And that's the opposite for Aston Villa. Just the one loss in this massive run of victories. That was the hammering against Arsenal. But I thought it was a brilliant performance against Forest in a different sort of way. Of course, John Victor makes that massive error and leads to the 3rd goal. But they're breaking down a low block, which is what teams trying to win the league have to do every single week. And that's often the challenge that teams who are not used to being in the title race fail in, but not Villa. They found a way to break them down. They found a way to win without Onana on the field. They found a way to win without a kind of bunch of players who'd kind of be the backup players. And I think it was a very strong victory in the end. I think John McGinn scoring a couple of goals proves once again his worth. I think Buendia struggled in this game, but I'd still expect him to start here. And I think that I've been saying for a long time that without Pau Torres, they look poor defensively, Villa. But I think Victor Lindelof has looked great. The Lindelof-Konsa partnership has looked really, really strong for Aston Villa. So, look, 1 defeat in this, 12-game run away from home. It's 5 victories in the 10 they've played. Palace on a bad run of form. You have to go Aston Villa win at 2.41. As with almost every single Villa game, you have to go both teams to score. In the last 5, both teams to score in every single game would have paid off for you. So Villa winning both teams to score is a really stunning 4.5. Much like the Tottenham result earlier on, I think this is a really, really good bet with really fair odds. So I'll certainly be putting 20 quid on that because I think it's a very likely outcome. In terms of players, Watkins scoring again, back him anytime at 2.75.
Could be Crystal Palace to score first and Aston Villa to come back from behind. We've seen this many times this season. Aston Villa continued their winning run. You can see also smart bet Crystal Palace first half result. So why not Crystal Palace to win the first half? Aston Villa to come back in the second one. Morgan, anytime goal scorer, or 𝐶𝐿𝐴 Aston Villa to win 2-1, 3-1, or 4-1. Next game is Everton. Wolves' first win of the season. Finally, Wolves, you picked them to win, actually, Tom, at the right moment. Against West Ham, they've improved in the last weeks. Who knows, Tom, if they are able to get a result against Everton, a team that surprisingly lost 2-4 against Brentford.
Yes, look, I think let's briefly start with Wolves because it's an interesting story because I did tip them to win against West Ham because West Ham are so poor and there had been improvements with Wolves. You could see it in the game against Liverpool. You could see it in the game against Manchester United. They've uncovered this lad, Matheus Mane, who is a Portuguese-born, Rochdale-raised central midfielder / forward who, fantastic story if you got the chance to look at it today. And he just ripped Man United and West Ham a new one in these 2 games. Almost cliche in that they've just thrown in this 18-year-old who's gone, all right, give me the ball. Give me the ball then. And that's exactly what he's done. He scored the 3rd against West Ham, which totally killed the game off. 2-0 might have been a different setup in the second half for West Ham before Nuno just raised the white flag and looked like he'd been on the lithium for the second half and just sort of went comatose. And that was down to Mane, who was absolutely fantastic. The rest of it, look, I still think this is a poor team. Let's not go wild after 1 win against this utterly woeful West Ham. I think Arokadare led the line well and made some clever runs, but he's got the ball control of a trampoline. I think John Arias scoring his first goal, but he's still not a good enough player to play in the Premier League. Look, I could go on about this. This team will still go down. I think they will beat Derby's 11 points and Southampton's 12 points, but I think 20 would be a stretch from where they are, which would be a commendable finish considering the utter disaster of the first half of the season. But they will land a glove here, and they may well score here. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them nick a result as well. In terms of Everton, all is not well. at the moment. And I think that David Moyes is going to see them through to a sturdy between 9th and 14th finish, which is certainly respectable considering they've been around the relegation zone every single season for the last, 6 or 7 years, Everton, something like that, since Ancelotti left, maybe a bit less, but certainly the last few seasons. Losing 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗄 has been catastrophic. Losing 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗏 has been significant, as well as 𝗀𝗏𝗏 to AFCON. I think Ghana and 𝗂𝗏𝗏 put in a great performance against Forest, but equally an awful performance against Brentford. And they can't rotate to those guys who've got to go again. And I think Keane and 𝗍𝗏𝗏 threw in their occasional howler game against Brentford a couple of days ago. I expect them to return to some sort of form here. Good to see Barry scoring. That'll make a difference for them. Good to see a couple of assists for Jack Grealish in the game against Brentford. That will hopefully improve his lackluster form after bursting onto the scene at Everton. He's kind of struggled to have an impact since then. Frankly, this game screams draw. And at 3.7, I'll absolutely be looking at that. Again, look at the Man United game. Look at the Liverpool game. Less so the West Ham game for Wolves. But I think they are now competing in a way they weren't previously. 1-1, same score as it was at Old Trafford, is 7. I wouldn't discount that. I'll also be looking here at the Mane, who I've mentioned. Anytime goal scorer for him, 4.8. Like, if anyone's going to do it, this little electric teenager is certainly someone I'd be looking at here. And that's well worth a punt if you are going to bet on this game. But screams draw, screams the under. If you were going to go for a winner, you'd look at Everton 1-0, but certainly under 2.5 goals in this game.
Well, our smart bet is also going for the draw, in this case at halftime. This pays 2.25. We have Galacticos, both teams to score and over 2.5 goals. He sees goals opposite from you. 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏, Everton to win and under 3.5 goals. Much more exciting should be the next one, Fulham Chelsea, Southwest London derby. Only 3 kilometers away. The stadium's even less. Probably Fulham grab a positive result against Liverpool. What a rocket by Reed. It was in the perfect spot. 3 wins and 2 draws in the last game, so this is not going to be easy for this new Chelsea. I guess now with the new manager, with Rossini on the bench, we will see. And they were lucky, Tom, to grab a draw against Man City. Very positive result. I don't think they deserved it, but at the end, it was is what it counts. The draw with Enzo scoring. How do you see this one? Finally, Chelsea bouncing back, or another draw could be a good option with these odds. I really like them.
Edu, I've got to say, hard disagree. I thought Chelsea deserved to win the game, let alone get a draw. I thought they were pretty decent, actually. I thought City were very weak in the game. We'll get to them a little bit later, I guess. But look, I don't know what Liam Rossini is going to bring. He hasn't been officially confirmed yet whilst we're recording this. He is going to be confirmed today, we understand. That's Monday. But I think Callum McFarlane did a good job, actually, against City. You know, a man who's literally never managed a proper game in his life up against Pep Guardiola. That's got to be pretty scary for anybody. And he changed the tactics and he made good changes, and his positivity got them back in the game, along with, Enzo Fernandez, who is a increasingly impressive player in the Premier League. I think with every passing week, with every passing game, he looks stronger and stronger and stronger, and 6 goals in the league this season is really good. I mean, look, let's start with them. I think that the issue is for Chelsea is no Caicedo, no 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏, leaving only Enzo Fernandez, for my money, is the world-class, or at least top-class players they have. Maybe Enzo is in that top category, I don't know. And it means that Reece James had to keep playing in central midfield. Reece James is an exceptional player, but he hasn't got the engine and certainly hasn't got the pace he used to have. So when the game is at walking pace, we saw against City on Sunday, he's very, very good. When the game gets pacey, it can pass him by and he starts hacking people down, which is not great. So we'll see who plays there. I think 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗀𝗏𝗏 and Gusto struggled, and we're still expecting 𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 to be out in this game. That's significant. I think 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗵𝗏𝗍𝐿 are good, but not great. I don't know what happened with Robert Sanchez, whether he's going to be fit for this one in goal, but I think Jorgensen struggled. And they look better when Didap came on up front, but I would say João Pedro is a better player. So intriguing to see whether McFarlane or Rossini make significant changes for this game. It's really tough to make an assessment. Though I will say, in the macro of the season, Chelsea's strength has been when they win possession up the field, as we saw against City second half, Newcastle second half. They're able to get 4 or 5 bodies forward, overwhelm the opposition, and then score. if they get opportunities like that in this game, I think they've got every chance of winning it. In terms of Fulham, Marco Silva remains an incredibly clever coach who, with the Man United job up as of this programme, I wonder whether his phone might be ringing this morning. He is in a situation now where I think he is due a move to a big club. And I think the first person to tell you that is Marco Silva. I think he's taken Fulham sort of as far as he can, but currently he's taken them to a position where, once again, they're punching above their weight. They lost to 𝗀𝗵𝗿 and 𝗵𝗵𝗄 and 𝗀𝐿𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐿. You wouldn't know it. With the way they performed against Liverpool, they didn't deserve to lose that game. No one saw Harrison Reed's incredible goal coming, but it was worthy of the quality of performance they put in. I think 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐻's been good. I think the three at the back has worked. I think Robinson's more of a wing-back than a full-back. Now, he's a very good full-back, but I think wing-back really suits him. And I think they've found a way to protect Tom Rennie in central midfield, who can't run anymore, really, the veteran Fulham legend. But if you can protect him with people around him, he certainly brings a lot of class to that central midfield, which you need when you've got the ball. So really fascinating one, this one. Absolutely screams draw at 3.7, this particular derby. Fulham have drawn their last 2. Chelsea have drawn 3 of the last 4. Screams 1-1, frankly. So look at the 1-1 scoreline here. 1-1 or 0-0 comes in as a nice group bet usually. 3.7 on its own for a draw is nice. In terms of players, look at the Harry Wilson market. Another goal for him against Liverpool. 3.6 anytime for him. He's having a spectacular season for Fulham. Top scorer with 6. You can't evade that.
All right, Tom, Fulham double chance for gaming. 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲, Chelsea to win, both teams to score. 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐻 also over 2.5 goals. Let's go to the next game. We have Man City Brighton. You wanted to analyze Man City after dropping points against Chelsea and Sunderland -6. Now, with Arsenal and Brighton finally ended their bad run. They beat Burnley. They were winless in 6 before that. And remember also, they beat Man City at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, they did. And this Man City are interesting. I've done their last 2 games, the Chelsea game and the Sunderland game before it. And there's a real lack of creativity right now about Man City. And the one thing that really surprised me in the game against Chelsea, they all look knackered. They look really tired, some of these players. They're really struggling to get motoring and get moving. And there was a lack of intensity in both games. They couldn't get the ball moving quick enough. And I think that cost them in both games. I don't know what the answer to that is, really. Like, maybe I'd bring in Doku from the start and I'd consider dropping Phil Foden, who I think has really struggled in the last couple of weeks. I think Bernardo Silva has been showing his age, lots of miles in those legs, and he's struggled a little bit in the last couple of games as well. I think that 𝗛𝗏𝗏 and Diaz likely both injured for this. That leaves you with Kusanov and Ake, which is not particularly strong. And also, if he was fit, I wonder if you'd maybe put 𝗛𝗏𝗏 back over to left back, because O'Reilly's played well, but 𝗛𝗏𝗏 provides such a goal-scoring threat in the team that he can't really do at centre-half as he could do at left-back. So some issues here. The positive is there's a great relationship brewing between 𝗀𝐿 and Reinders. Reinders makes run after run after run after run, and 𝗀𝐿 is always looking for him. More often than not finds him. And even the first goal against Chelsea, or their goal against Chelsea, it didn't look for Reinders specifically, but when it broke from Haaland, Reinders is there, making a run, a shuffle and shot, and that's the goal. Done it against West Ham and did it in one of the other games as well. So, look, I've been really impressed with 𝗀𝐿 and Reinders, and think if they are going to score, those 2 guys will need to combine. I have concerns about Rodri in central midfield, who looks way off the pace, as you'd understand, considering how long he's been off. But Gonzalez being out means Rodri's probably got to play. And if it's not Rodri with the injuries they've got, I'm not quite sure what you do in central midfield in terms of a ball winner. Maybe you ask Reinders to do a different job. I don't know, because even, pushing Ake into midfield, they can't really do that with the defensive problems they've got, or 𝗛𝗏𝗏 or whomever. So it's going to be interesting to see the lineup here. In terms of Brighton, I think it was a lovely gimme against Burnley, and they cruised to victory there. But previously, poor against West Ham, I thought. And West Ham, who were dreadful, should have probably won that game, bar some typically calamitous defending from the Hammers in that match they might have done. And even against Sunderland, there was lack of creativity in that game. So I think the issue with the season is that Minte and Matoma have just not delivered consistently. I think Rutte and Kostulas and Welbeck have all had some decent moments. Welbeck had that nice little streak of goals, but not someone you'll be starting in these games. There's just a spark missing about Brighton. And I've said that for a few weeks now. Maybe the win over Burnley will give it to them. Maybe some moves in the transfer window will give it to them. But I can see them struggling here. So I'd certainly take the Man City win. I think that they're desperate for it now. And it was a great winning run before these couple of draws in a row. Win at 1.44, maybe not great. So I'd be looking at the under market here. I think this will be a very, very narrow scoreline. I wouldn't be amazed to see it at 0-0 at half-time, 0-0 at 60, 0-0 at 70, and then City in desperation mode to stay in the title race, which it might be the story of it at this point, go on to score. So City in under 3.5 is 2.63. Nice little group bet of 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3.75. I can maybe see Brighton scoring a goal here because of how poor City look defensively at the moment, but I just think the value here is in a tight City win.
Okay, Haaland to score. Carbonaro is throwing this. Haaland to score 2 or more goals. City double chance, and both teams to score double chance. Shouldn't pay much if you are backing Man City, that's for sure. And then we have Burnley, Man United. Remember the news, AMORIM has been sacked. It looks like Darren Fletcher. Tom, you are right. As almost always, he's going to be the caretaker and perhaps the manager until the end of the season. AMORIM wanted his way out. It was pretty clear after the draw against Leeds, saying he's not a coach, but he's a manager. Well, now you are an unemployed guy, AMORIM, with a lot of money probably, but still he had really bad numbers. With Man United, impossible to back Man United with AMORIM on the bench. Tom, perhaps if you are looking for a bet now, we might see a reaction because the players have quality, and always when there is a new guy coming, they want to show off.
Yeah, look, and I think Man United weren't that bad against Leeds on Sunday in a really tough environment. And there's lots of players out for United too. Ahmad, Mazraoui, and Mbeumo, Maguire, De Ligt, Fernandes, one or two others as well who might well see themselves in the first team. So they've done well to navigate this little run, not losing too many. 6 draws and 11 is not great in the Premier League for Manchester United, but it's a very congested field and they're not getting beaten, which is commendable. What I do think what Darren Fletcher will do is he'll abandon the AMORIM formation. Like, it's been a total flop for such a long time. It has not got the better out of any of these players, any of them at any point. And frankly, I just think that he had to go at some point. I think this was going to be the end, whatever happens come the end of the season. There's obviously been issues about recruitment. There's so many clubs now that want to do recruitment and not consult the manager. I'm not sure that's ever going to work for anybody, and it's going to keep ending to this particular situation. But what Darren Fletcher will do is go back to basics. It'll be 4-2-3-1 or an equivalent of that. And they've looked good, for example, against Newcastle a couple of weeks ago when AMORIM all of a sudden realised there was a second formation in football, and they ground out a really impressive 1-0 victory. And I can see them going very similar here. It just depends on how fit Casemiro is, if he can play another game, how fit any of the players coming back are, whether they continue with 𝗀𝗲𝗄 as an attacking player because there's no other options for them. And I guess Benjamin Sesko's got to play himself into form because he's looked nowhere near quality enough to play in the Premier League to this point. But in terms of Burnley, I mean, how many times have I got to say it now? They're very similar to West Ham and before the weekend Wolves. It's just not good enough. Like, Leeds invested, Sunderland invested, Burnley did not invest to the same level, and this is not a Premier League quality squad. There is a real lack of quality in this team. It's a bunch of players that will be playing for Burnley in the Championship next season. No one's particularly excelled. Potentially 𝗛𝗲𝗄𝐿 at times. Beyond that, there's nobody. They concede a decent amount of goals. They don't score enough goals. The home form has been bad. The away form has been bad. But I mean, look, they'll compete. This is not a question of belief and organisation in the same way it is with Wolves and West Ham, who have just found ways to shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly. This is an issue of just quality. And they couldn't attract the players. They don't pay the wages. And Scott Parker has got them organised enough, but organised enough to just lose every single game. And I'm going to go for that again here. Man U win under Darren Fletcher is 1.79. I think it'll be 2-1 to United, but you can group that up with 2-1, 3-1 or 4-1 to go for 4.5. They did beat Wolves 4-1 a couple of weeks ago, so I can see it being similar to that. And 𝐿𝐭𝐤, anytime, goal scorer is the player you'd be looking at here at 2.4.
Well, also 𝐿𝐭𝐤 is the idea of 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐵, 𝐿𝐭𝐤, anytime goal scorer. Some people already missing RUBEN AMORIM. How come? You can miss Ruben Amorim. United double chance combined with both teams to score. This is for Galacticos. King Devil going for United. A straight win. This is a reaction game. I kind of agree, actually, with the comment. And then we have another late kickoff. This is Newcastle. Leeds 1.7. Newcastle to win when they are playing at home is never a bad idea. Back-to-back wins finally for Newcastle, getting closer to the European spots. But Leeds are also in great form. 3 consecutive draws, no defeats in the last 7. And now they put a great cushion with the bottom 3, 8 points with West Ham.
Yeah, lovely gap at this stage of the season for Leeds, and the run has been very, very good. I mean, let's start with Newcastle, who they are going to turn it around. They were always going to turn it around, and they've now started picking up away victories. The win over Burnley, expected, was still impressive and required as well. But at home, they've been very solid all season. Victories over Fulham and Newcastle, and the draw against Chelsea, where they probably should have won. The issue is they're just short of resources in a couple of positions, and I think 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐿 coming in has made a difference there, because they signed a £60 million forward from Brentford and needed some rotation, and he'd barely played all season. It allows them now to do something different. It allows them now to rest 𝗀𝗏𝗏, rotate 𝗀𝗏𝗏, who'd been carrying this team from an offensive perspective all season. Bruno Guimaraes suddenly scoring plenty of goals at the moment. Top scorer for Newcastle in the league with 7. And scored, I think, 2 goals in each of their last 7 home matches, exactly 2. So expect them to score at least 2 goals here, because that's the way they've been going. Defensively look a bit better with 𝗀𝗏 and 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐵 returning to a bit of form. Lewis Miley continuing at fullback. I'd like to see that experiment come to an end sooner rather than later. I think Miley would as well, and I think it'd be worth his position back in central midfield. But look, things turning around for Newcastle. Their home form has been good, and I expect them to at least finish top 6 come the end of the season. Look, it would take a West Ham turnaround for Leeds to be in trouble. So at the moment, I don't see a West Ham turnaround. Thereby, I think they'll be all right. The gap is fantastic. It's not insurmountable for a good team in the bottom 3. But again, I have just no faith in West Ham or Burnley to put a run of results together. And the run Leeds has been spectacular. It is worth noting just 2 wins in this run. And one was against Crystal Palace at home. One was against Chelsea. Chelsea had a weird old day, and Palace, that was the sandwich game in that horrible run of 3 games in 6 days, which was totally disrespectful to Crystal Palace to make them do that. But Leeds still had to get over the line and did. I think that Brendan Aronson and 1 or 2 others' work rate has shone brightly in this run of form. I think they've got some great performances from 𝗵𝗏 and Strike at centre-half, which I didn't see coming. And 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗀, the goals may have dried up a bit, hit the post against Man United, but before that Leeds game, it was goals in 6 consecutive games, and he is still fit. So they are going to be a threat here, but they haven't been great away from home this season. Newcastle have been good at home. You've got to look for the Newcastle win at 1.75. I do think both teams will score in this match. As I mentioned, I think Leeds have at least 1 goal in them in most games, and it's usually from 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗀. So I wouldn't discount that here. I can see it being quite similar to the win over Fulham, when Newcastle beat them by 2-1. That's the scoreline I'm looking at here. Newcastle and both teams to score is 3.5. I would also have a little tickle at the draw, only because of Leeds' ability recently to draw every game they're playing in. Brentford, Sunderland, Liverpool and Man United, all draws. So on the strength of Leeds' form, I wouldn't discount it. But for me, I would just pick for Newcastle.
7 draws this season for Leeds. Newcastle at home and rested. Mom Spaghetti is going for Newcastle to win. Both teams to score for both and over 2.5 goals. 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗀, anytime goal scorer. And the last game, of course, the best game in this match day, Arsenal-Liverpool. Remember, in the first part of the season, Liverpool won the fixture at Anfield. It was settled for a goalless draw, but Szoboszlai's great free kick won it for the Reds. Now things have changed a lot. 14 points distance between these 2 teams. Once upon a time, Tom, at the beginning of the season, the 2 favorites to win the trophy. Of course, Liverpool are out of the race for a while, even dropping points at Craven Cottage. It's true that the goal is a great rocket from Reed, but still, I think the defense should have done much more to close the gap. And Arsenal had a really good Christmas period. If we mentioned in our previous video that 4 points distance with City is great to start the season, what to say now with 6 points distance? Looks like a champions team, Tom, this Arsenal.
Yes, and I think this next 10 games is going to be critical, even more than the final 9 or 10 down the home straight. Why? Because we know City will come on strong at that time. And with that being the case, if Arsenal can build up a nice big buffer here while City are dropping points, they can afford to have a blip, which they will have in that final 10. They'll lose at least one of those games, and they'll be able to just brush it off like it's nothing. So this run is really important. A run of 6 or 7 wins in a row here, and I think this is done because City will drop points in this run as they have been doing. So critical moment in the season now for Arsenal before the Champions League returns, before a run of fixtures where all the competitions could converge at once and cause an issue for them. It's right now that Arsenal, and over Christmas, they have really built up this excellent, exceptional lead with some hard-fought wins. Tough win against Brighton, tough win against Bournemouth, played great against Villa. Of course, they got a bit of luck with a goal that opened the scoring that, to my money, shouldn't have stood. But whatever, they went on from that point and crushed Villa with 3 further goals. Brilliant moment this for Arsenal. Declan Rice, I've said for a long time, even since he was West Ham player, he's been a world-class player, and he just adds things to his game all the time. And you've got someone like that driving you forward, helping you defensively, all of it. He's the best player in the league, and I think he's got players around him that are making him better. I think that it was really interesting to see that even Bukayo Saka's not starting now for Arsenal. His numbers aren't great, Bukayo Saka. And Mikel Arteta was like, yeah, okay, well, you can sit on the bench and I'll bring in 𝐸𝐸𝐸. I'll try someone else. I'll rotate now. He's not just having to flog Saka until Saka can no longer play, which was the story a couple of seasons ago. So a lot of people in form, a lot of squad depth, players like 𝐬𝐭𝐸𝐴 trying to play themselves into form, Saliba and Gabriel back together at centre-half, all turning Arsenal's way at this moment. In terms of Liverpool, I do think that there are still some obvious deficiencies there. I think not having 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 against Fulham made a massive difference, despite 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀 scoring. I think that if 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 is not fit for this game, we're expecting him to be. I think they're going to lack firepower going forward. Florian Wirtz has looked okay recently, a couple of goals now for Liverpool. But again, when they're chasing a goal against Fulham, he comes off. I think that tells you a lot about where the manager sees him. They don't see him as someone they need on the field when a goal is necessary. If you go back to his time at 𝐬𝐿𝐴, he never would have been taken off with 10 minutes remaining in the team chasing a goal because he was a go-to guy, and now he's part of the system. But the system has got better. I think Curtis Jones made a massive difference in terms of bite in this team. 𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐿 and Van Dijk have looked a bit better recently, though I'd still be looking at replacing 𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐿 sooner rather than later if it were me. But the form is still a bit patchy. Even the win over against Wolves was tough. The win over Tottenham wasn't particularly impressive. The Leeds performance was really woeful. And Fulham, I think, deserves at least a draw from the game at the weekend. So on current form, with Arsenal winning big games now and winning against Aston Villa, you have to look at the Arsenal win. And it's a real to be the man, you've got to beat the man scenario on Thursday. If they win this and City have dropped points again, I think we really could be looking at an Arsenal procession. Depends how it goes, but I back them to win here. Arsenal win to 0 was a good bet across the season. It's now become a poor bet. Arsenal win both teams to score has now become a very good bet. I haven't got it in front of me now, but I think they've conceded in 7 of the last 9, Arsenal. But certainly in the last 3, they've won with both teams scoring. So follow that run and you'll make 3.25, which is quite nice. And then a weird group bet. I don't know, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. I think 2-1 is very likely, but you bundle them together for 4.5. Again, I can't discount 4-1. When you can get 2-1 and 3-1 together in a game like this, I always think it's worthwhile. Take Arsenal, both teams score.
Arsenal straight win, Gaming 1-0, 2-0. Arsenal to win, both teams to score. No tight affair. Liverpool to cause an upset. Bob is telling us, I know Liverpool will wake up and get a draw here. Man Spaghetti is telling us Arsenal now big favorites to win the title, 1.33. Man City 4, in case you are still backing the Sky Blues. Great game, this one. Arsenal-Liverpool, impossible, I think, not to back Arsenal with the performances they are putting together lately. Well, Tom, this is it for our live show when AMORIM got sacked. Remember, guys, chance for you to win money thanks to Oddspedia. Participate in our tipster competitions. We have the Premier League one. There you go, a guy from Ecuador now leading the table, then a guy from Italy, and then a guy from Ukraine. And also you have monthly tipster competitions now in January, yearly now in 2026. So stay tuned of our competitions and also rivals where you can create your own competition. Tom, we take a break from Premier League for 10 days. At least, not long break. We have FA Cup this weekend. So let me know your safe bet.
Safe bet was tricky here, really tricky. But I have taken Man City again. Though they let me down on Sunday, I do think City will beat Brighton at home for 1.44.
And your ACCA?
I've gone with a double here, but again, the odds were really surprising to me. Aston Villa to win at Crystal Palace and Tottenham to win at Bournemouth. Again, Tottenham, the second best team away from home in the country, and Villa have won 12 of their last 13. A double at 7.48, that's well worth a punt.
Really, really high odds. Hello, Jimmy from North Carolina. Happy New Year indeed to everyone. And now it's time to say goodbye. Tom, thank you. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for your analysis. Bye-bye.